Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and however this finds you. Good, it's good to be here with you, my friends and family. Here we are. We are on day number four. Day number four. We are 4 days into this new year and this journey, and we're reading through the book of Proverbs, a chapter a day, a chapter at a time. We are still going through. We are right now. We are on Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4. We'll be reading this on today. Proverbs chapter 4. It's a pretty decent and okay size read. We'll be reading it in its entirety according to the English Standard Version. And we'll be engaging in that. And as we continue on our journey throughout this month. Hey, this is why we want to be able to do these things. I believe that the at the beginning of the year we make all these new things that we want to do. We want to exercise more so we can get better health. That's one of the things I'm going to be doing throughout this year, trying to get physically healthy. There's some more financial health. I need some of that too. Um, and many other ways, strengthening relationships, however it is, we're finding ways to be more healthy. And so the greatest way to be able to do that is to be able to do it with wisdom. And what we have here in the book of Proverbs, we have 31 chapters or 31 sections of Proverbs. And those 31 sections, look, if we read a chapter a day throughout the month of January, we would read the whole book of Proverbs, and it will give us some daily inspiration that we can live life that is going to be pleasing and acceptable in the sight of the Lord. And so here today, we're going to do the same thing as we continue to look at Proverbs, the chapter Proverbs 4, I should say Proverbs 4. And today we got our key emphasis we're going to look at is dealing with some of the authors of Proverbs. We're going to look at Solomon, the wise man, or the wise, I should say, the scribes of Hezekiah. We'll look at some of them as well, and Agar and King Lemuel, and Samuel. I always got to put out Samuel Lemuel, King Lemuel, King Lemuel, and we'll be looking at also Proverbs 31 in a unique manner as well. And so we're going to look at these different authors here and evaluate them when as we go through this. Here's our thought for today. While we want to be able to evaluate what are we allowing to shape us? What are we truly allowing to shape us? For you, what are you allowing to shape you? And so here it is. We're going to be looking at these different authors in this overview here on today. Our goal, even with that, is to make sure that you all have great opportunity to have a full experience throughout this month to be able to get a full background overview of this book of Proverbs, the writers, the times, and things of that nature. And so here today we're going to be starting off with Solomon. And Solomon, let me pull that back up. Solomon, the principal author of Proverbs. He writes most of this and is equated as the primary author. Solomon is the principal author, as you can see right there. I'm dealing with Proverbs 1 and 1, Proverbs 10 and 1, Proverbs 25 and 1. It identifies Solomon. So who is this guy named Solomon? Solomon, he was the son of King David, the king of Israel. He is the recipient of extraordinary God-given wisdom. When we look at First King chapter 3 and reading that from verses 5 through 14, we get to experience how he became the recipient of this extraordinary God-given wisdom. He is a leader who governed during Israel's height of peace and prosperity. He wrote many of the Proverbs from lived experience, both in obedience and even in times of failure. Solomon, what did Solomon bring? This is what he does. He builds a foundation wisdom. He built foundational wisdom on, first of all, wisdom on living righteous. Uh, he built this foundational wisdom on leadership and justice. He builds this foundational wisdom on wealth, on works, and on stewardship. He builds this foundational wealth on relationships and self-control. Solomon, he contributed this deep insight into human nature and moral consequences. Here are some of the things that we can see here that Solomon, he knew wisdom intellectually and even practically. He knew it intellectually and practically. Even in his later life shows us the dangers of knowing wisdom without consistently living it out. And so when we think about that, this is just something more than just having what it was revealed about those times when there's revelation, but we are to be moving towards transformation. That what we believe begins to line up with how we behave. Proverbs it reflect on both divine insight and even give some cautionary reflection. Um, we can see that some of these things, what it looks like even today, when we have highly educated leaders with vast amount of resources, having visionary executives, publicly intellectuals, we have national leaders, but yet still we are in need of these things. Solomon would resemble someone that would be highly educated, mass resources. He would have this visionary effect. He would be someone with access to power. He will have access to influence, and he will have access to opportunity. But we also know that Solomon voice still matters unto us today because his wisdom warns even modern leaders about moral drifts. He begins to show that gifting does not replace obedience. His teaching shows us that wisdom must be continually practiced. Wisdom, it can be known, wisdom can be taught, and wisdom can even be preached, yet still be neglected in practice. Let me rewind and we say that one more time. Wisdom can be known, wisdom can be taught, and wisdom can even be preached. But yet, wisdom can still be neglected in practice. In Solomon, he writes and he is aware of these things. Secondly, we want to look at the wise, this community of sages of Proverbs. We see them in chapters 22 through chapters 24. And here it is. This is what we can learn about them and through them. They were a group of unnamed wisdom teachers. Most likely they was educators. They were most likely counselors. They could have been scribes and elders. They are functioning within Israel's instructional tradition. They bring in things, some of these practical teachings on justice and fairness. They bring in and they contribute these teachings on social responsibility. They bring in, they contribute these practical teachings on discipline and these teachings on restraint. Here it is. They contribute what they contributed has has a strong focus that is heavily on ethical living and community health. If we was to look, if these wise folks was with us today, here they would look like seasoned pastors and the elders of the churches. They would look like the Christian educators and counselors. They would look like the communities of mentors and moral guides. And we know that their voice still matters today. Why? Because their voice highlights the value of collective wisdom. It is their voice that counters the celebrity-driven influence that is moving in leadership cultures. Should say it like this: their voice matters today as it counters celebrity-driven leadership cultures. Uh, Also, their voice matters today as it reinforces that wisdom is often nurtured in communities, not in the spotlights. We ought to be able to realize that not all wisdom needs a name to have authority. You know, your mama always said that all money is good money. here it is in this sense. They come and be able to say that not all wisdom needs a name to have authority, as we have these nameless wisdom men, wise men, wise. I don't even want to say men, the wise. They don't necessarily have to all be men, the wise. Mm. But then also we see some of the scribes of Hezekiah as they preserve, they are the preservers of wisdom. We see that being implemented in Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 1. We'll see that in this detail later on this month. But hold up, here are some things here. And these were most likely, they were like scholars and scribes during Hezekiah reign as king. They were given the responsibility and task with collecting and preserving Solomon Proverbs. And they demonstrated deep reverence for historical wisdom. When they come on the scene, this is what they come with. This is their contribution. They ensure the transmission of wisdom across generations. And they also contributed organized wisdom for clarity and accessibility. If they were here today, they would represent people like Bible translator and theologians that gives us other books or other translations of the Bible outside the, so we're not restrained into one translation. There will be those that then came together and produced things like the new International Version, the NIV, the New Living Translation. They have come together and given us things like the English Standard Version or the New American Standard Bible. And you will find these people in seminaries as professors, and they will be really strong in their archiving work. You will find them as you will order your books and your study guides through curriculum developers and discipleship architects. And they rose. They rose. They still matter how they matter today, because without preserving these things, wisdom can be lost. And they matter today because faithfulness behind the scenes is able to sustain faith publicly. And it reminds us that teaching and persevering, preserving, teaching and preserving are ministries in themselves. Some serve God by speaking wisdom, while others serve God by safeguarding wisdom. Let me say that again. Some serve God by speaking wisdom, while others serve the same God by safeguarding it. And so we see those two. Then we have this man named Agar, or Agur, as some would say, the humble truth seeker. We see him in Proverbs chapter 30, verses 1 through 9. And here it is. There are some things that we can learn about him as well. He was a man marked by humility and self-awareness. Agar was one that acknowledged his limitations openly. He sought neither poverty nor riches, but only daily dependence on God. And when he comes in and brings his contributions, he emphasizes that the need of humility before God. He emphasizes the dependence on divine revelation. He emphasizes this balance of life. Here it is. This is what Agars, if the Agars of today is those reflective pastors, is those spiritual directors or contemplative leaders. They are someone who values integrity over the platform. And this is why people like Agar matters today, because it counters arrogance and performative spiritualities. It moves us from to model intellectual humility, and it teaches that contentment is something to have in an age where we live in, where people are more attracted to those things of excessive. Here it is, that true wisdom begins when we admit what we do not know. True wisdom begins when we admit what we do not know. But then not only that, we have this king, Lemuel, where wisdom is passed down through Proverbs. We see these things from this man, Lemuel. Who is he? He was a king that was given instructions by his mother, possibly a foreign ruler that had some influence by God's wisdom. He demonstrates generational and maternal instruction. When he comes, what he contributes brings warning against moral compromise and abuse of power, and he advocates for justice and advocates for the oppressed. We love those Lemuels of today because these are the leaders who are shaped by godly parenting and mentorship. We love these leaders today because they are a public servant guided by moral instruction. We love these type of leaders today because they are someone leading with inherited values. And this is why they matter today. Because the Lemuels, they highlight the power of godly influence that even begins at home. They evaluate the role of women in shaping leaders. They show wisdom can cross cultural and national boundaries. It is the voice that shapes leaders that is often heard long before the thrones, long before the titles. And then look here, finally, we want to just, here it is, we want to look at this Proverb 31 woman, that wisdom is lived out. Look, she's not an author per se, but a composite wisdom portrait. And when we see this, we know that she matters, as she represents wisdom that is embodied in daily life. Shows that wisdom is practical, that wisdom is relational, wisdom, and that wisdom is industrious. When we think about these things, it reflects the women of our modern day time, that reflects faithfully on balancing faith, family, work, and service. It's those women, those believers who wisdom is not just theatrical, but it's visible. It shows us that wisdom is best understood when it is lived. And these multiple authors, they matter in our world to show us that, first of all, diversity, the diversity of experience, that wisdom is strengthened through our varied perspective. Secondly, that it shows a collective faithfulness, that God speaks through community, not just individuals. It shows that the transferability across time, that wisdom adapts without losing truth. It also shows us that Christ as a fulfillment, that all wisdom find completion in Christ. And so we see these things here, even as we begin to move forward in the Proverbs of Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4, it begins to show us that wisdom for the whole life, that wisdom is for the whole life. And as we're going to begin to look here, we see that some key things here. That first of all, that wisdom is passed down. Wisdom is passed down. This call to receive instructions in these first 9 verses, we'll when we read it, we'll see that that it emphasizes that Solomon, he emphasizes this, speaks both as both son and a father. That wisdom is received through listening and not just hearing. That instruction implies discipline and formation. He talks about, hear, my child, the instructions of a father. Solomon even recalls his father's David's teachings. Wisdom is something to be acquired and something that is to be cherished. He shows us that God often transmits wisdom through relationships. Instructions is a gift and is not a burden. We ought to take hold of these things because it shows us that many people reject instruction, but they truly desire success. And it shows us that spiritual growth requires submission to godly teachings, and that the churches must reclaim the intergenerational discipleship plan. That what this really shows us is that you cannot live wisely if you refuse to be taught. And so we see that, but then we also see the value of wisdom. The wisdom preserves life, and that wisdom is able to extend life, not just for years, but even extend the quality of life. That instruction is able to protect against self-destructive paths, and that wisdom is something to hold fast. We see here that we can see that God commands are life-giving and not restrictive. We can see that wisdom shapes safe boundaries. These things ought to matter unto us because we live in a culture that celebrates freedom without restraints. The Proverbs teaches that freedom within God's design, and that discipline today prevents disaster for tomorrow. Wisdom is not here to limit life, but it is here to preserve life. And so we see here also in this fourth chapter, that the contrast of two paths. That there is a path um, that moves in two different ways. Direction, and our direction, excuse me, I should say it like that. Our direction determines our destiny, as it emphasizes and shows that there is a contrast between the way of the righteous and the way of the wicked. That even evil becomes addictive and destructive. That blindness can cause, or darkness blinds those who walk in it. It really wants to show us that life is directional. It's not a neutral illusion. Moral paths shape moral outcomes. And when we begin to think about these things, we are to realize that even in the media and what cultural normalized has become normalized in darkness. Media normalizes darkness. Cultural normalizes darkness. Well, wisdom calls for intentional separation from sin. It begins to show us that we cannot walk both paths simultaneously. It begins to show us that every step is beginning to shape your future. It reminds me of a song. And every little step I take, um, and it just that every little step that we take is moving in a particular direction. Here it is, number 4, that we ought to be guarding our hearts. That the heart really is the control center of life. And as we begin to look at this through those verses 20 through 27, we'll see these emphases that the heart is not only just the command center of the person, but what enters the heart begins to shape behaviors and destiny. And wisdom demands that we be vigilant when it comes down to these things. The heart includes things, the mind, it includes the will, and it includes the emotions. And transformation that can be seen outwardly only begins on internal things. If we are truly going to see transformation on the outside, it must begin internally. Here it is. This is why we need these things today. Because we need to have a something that guards the heart in this digital age. We must be able to know how to watch, listen to, we must be able to know what we watch, what we listen to, and what entertains us, and know that they matter. Understanding that spiritual health requires for us to make intentional boundaries. Here it is, because what we allow in our hearts will eventually show up in our lives. So we see here, before we begin this reading, that wisdom is generational, instructions is protection. Life is a series of chosen paths. The heart determines direction, and integrity requires consistency. So, before we begin our reading, here's a reflective thought. Am I receiving instruction? Am I choosing the right paths? Am I guarding my heart? Or am I drifting? That sounds like a good thing for us to be able to have. I'll sum it up in this way right here. You need to evaluate what you are allowing to shape you. Evaluate what you are allowing to shape you. Here it is. Let's go back to what the quote that is pulled that I said just a few moments ago. Here it is. Am I receiving instruction? Am I choosing the right path? Am I guarding my heart, or am I drifting? And so as we go through our reading today, I want you to evaluate what you are allowing to shape you. Now let us go into our reading of Proverbs chapter 4. We'll be reading this according to the English Standard Version. It is comprised of 27 verses, and we're going to read it in its entirety. Hear, O son, a father's instructions. Oh, excuse me. Hear, O sons, a father's instruction. Be attentive, that you may gain insight. For I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. And whatever you get insight. Prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the path of the upright. When you walk, your step will not be hampered. And if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go to it. Or excuse me, avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like a light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ears to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. That is Proverbs 27. That is Proverbs number 4 in its entirety, verses 1 through 27. But hey, I want to back up. I haven't done this much on this go around, but there was something that was unique here that just really stuck out to me. And and in these readings, they're hitting me first, but I hope as they hit you, they're helping you as much as they are helping me. Because what God wants us to do, He wants us to turn towards Him. But notice here in verse 14, He says, "Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on." Here's where I really got this part right here. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. I wonder in verse 16, for they cannot sleep. Who is they? Who is that they are robbed of sleep? That they are the wicked and the evil. The reason why I wanted to look at this when I was reading, it was sprung out at me. Is what happens. It made me want to question what happens when we are sleep deprived. What happens when we do not sleep? There are some things that take place. I know me. If I'm sleep, if I don't get sleep, then I can get kind of cranky. If I don't sleep, I can get kind of agitated. If I don't sleep, there are some things that begin to take place, but there is something even deeper here. Um, Let me see here. I'm gonna pull up some here, um, because I think there is just something that is very, very valuable here. Because when um when I'm working, and I've been working, I've had times when I've been working um extreme amount of hours. When my sleep has been stolen away from me, one of the things that begin to take place is that I start messing up. Many of you may know that I do commercial cleaning, and so what that looks like, then that means that I provide commercial cleaning for small businesses and churches around. And there has been times when I have went around and I've collected all the trash, and then when I'm walking and then I'm vacuuming and stuff, and I realize that I miss trash. It's something I know what I'm doing, but sometimes when I'm just so sleepy, I mess up things. When I'm deprived of sleep, I don't have the energy to keep moving forward. I'm going somewhere with this. Um, there are consequences of no sleep. There's this restlessness that come about. There's things that happen where I'm not as attentive to things. And when I think about it in conjunction with this text, when it's talking about with the evil and the wicked, that they are robbed of sleep, that means they don't have the energy, they don't have the strength, they don't have all that it needs to keep on making people to go off path. But what is it waiting on? It's waiting on you so that you will take their path and that you will fall. That I can get rest. Yeah, that's what it says. I will read it again and I'm done. I just really wanted to highlight that because it makes me wonder. We talk about all the evilness in the world, all the wicked things that are being done, all of the things that the quote unquote the devil made me do it type things. But are we feeding the evil and wicked ways is sleep? Look, listen to this again. He says, do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep until they have made someone stumble. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. And so is the wicked and the evil things of this world getting sleep so it could be rested and energized and strengthened because you are the one that is stumbling that they may get sleep? Hold on, in a whole nother sense, they are robbed. They are staying up. This sleep is stolen from. They are staying up, working overtime, waiting on someone else to stumble. That's when the job is complete. But I just wanted to share that little extra commentary and extra. I want to say call it commentary, but just some extra thoughts that came into my mind when I read that. Just spare a moment. But hey, we have done our day 4 of Proverbs, reading day Proverbs chapter 4 in its entirety according to the English Standard Version. I pray that this has blessed your soul. May God bless you and may God keep you, is my humble prayer.